All right, so we're gonna have a demonstration of a, what's the type of knock?
Well, there's 3 knots in the whole thing, 2 with variation on the third. So this is called the starter knot. And all this is gonna be, and I'll do this very simply as I can, so everybody understands what we're doing. This is called the starter knot, and all it is gonna be is just a square knot with a half hitch on either side to lock it. Okay? So, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on the right-hand side of the rib, but it doesn't matter. You can start on the left-hand side, whatever works for you. And so we're just going down the right-hand side of the rib, out the bottom. We cross the rib, we go in our hole here on the left, and we come up on somewhere. Like I said, Mikey's gonna have to edit this a little bit.
No pressure, Dan.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Here we go. There it is. This is actually easier when it's standing up vertically because you can actually look through these holes and see the needle. Anyway, what we're doing is I'm gonna what we're going to do is we're going to tie a square knot here, and a square knot is just right over left, under and through, left over right, under and through. Or when you're doing this with fabric cord, short over long, under and through, short over long, under and through, and you're done. So we square knot, and we pull that right down tight. But we're going to lock it on either side with a half hitch, and for that we're going to use one of these little baby needles, and it's good to have an assortment of different size needles, different curves. And I wouldn't ordinarily do this. I'll show you how I'd normally do it, but just so that everybody understands what we're doing. Make a loop, and we come back through it. There's our half hitch on that side. We'll cut that off about there because we're kind of done with that. And then on the other side here, we'll do the very same thing. We'll take the cord off our big needle, put it through our smaller needle, pull that through. There's our loop. There's our half hitch now on the other side. So we've got a square knot with a half hitch on either side. And now all we're going to do is we're going to push that down the hole. For that we can use the back side of our needle here because it's kind of blunt for pushing. And we push our knot down inside the fabric so you can't see it. And that's the hidden part of the knot. So now we're in business. Now we're going to get into that's our first lace. Now we're going to get into our running lace here. So what we do, we're using our curved needle. We go in this hole where our lace is, and then and like I say, this is a little easier when it stands up straight, but we find the end of our needle and we come out to this hole, pull our cord all the way through. Now we just hold this back here. There's 2 ways to tie this knot. I'll show you the traditional way of tying it. So we just hold this back here to keep it out of the way. Go down this hole. Now we're going to do the same thing that we did a second ago when we were tying our starting knot. We just go through the fabric. Except what we don't want to do is pull the cord all the way through. And done this for a couple of days, so I'm a little bit out of practice, but it actually does get easier as you get going. So, like I said, what we didn't want to do was pull all this down this hole because that would kind of screw it up. So, here's our loop, and there's two parts of this loop here in my right hand. There's the stationary part, which is attached to the previous stitch, and then there's sort of the live part, which is attached to this cord. What we want to do is have the stationary part of the loop here on front, and we pass our needle through it, just like this. So all we've got is sort of like when we did a half hitch. We've just come up through the middle of that loop, and we can just double check that we got it oriented the way we want it. We want the static part of the cord in front and the live part here. Then we just pull it back, and we'll kind of hold the cord tight like this, and then we'll hold the bottom end of the loop here with our thumb. So we've got a triangle, and we've got three parts of this triangle. There's got the first leg, the second leg, and the third leg. Now there's a story, a way of explaining this about an island and a palm tree and a fox and an alligator and a rabbit trail, and if I told you that, you'd probably think I'm crazy, but some people will recognize it. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go under with the needle the first part of this triangle, and then we're going to go over the second part of the triangle. Then we're going to turn the needle around, and we're going to go under that second part of the triangle and over the third part of the triangle, because all we want to do, all we're looking to create is this. So with the X across our needle. Now what we do, we pull our needle through the X and get rid of most of our cord. Now we got two pieces of cord. We got this live piece of cord that's attached to the needle, and we got this cord that's actually our stitch going around the rib. So what we do, and this is our knot here, so what we do is we pull our stitch, so our stitch is tight going around the fabric. And then because we're running the cord up the right hand side of the rib, we're going to pull that over straight across like this. Now we've got a tight stitch, and now to get rid of this remaining loop, we just keep our finger on the knot and we pull straight up, and you can actually feel it pop a little bit when you get to the end of it. That is the traditional way of tying a modified seine knot. Now, just while we're doing that, when you tighten this knot, there's an epic way to blow this. So if you pull it forward as you're tightening it, as you're getting rid of that last loop I just did, you're kind of pulling against the cord from the previous knot, and you might get away with that for a little while. If you pull it sideways this way, you're kind of pulling on the top of the rib, which you really don't want to do because the rib's really not made to take a strain like that. The rib is just there to give this shape. But if you pull it back the way that you've come from, you'll tear this fabric, and if you're lucky, you'll just come back to the first hole here behind you. And now you have to repair this while you're building it, and it's not the end of the world, but it's sure going to feel like it. So what you do is when you're taking the slack out of this, what I do, it's always worked for me, is I come straight up away from it like this, and you're holding down on it, you're pulling, then you're not putting any strain on the fabric, because the only thing that's keeping this knot from pulling back, from ripping back here, is just the strength of the fabric, and it really hasn't got any strength that way. This stuff's pretty thin, it'll cut right through it. If I give this one good yank, I'll pull it right back here to the trailing edge and we'll be wrecked. So you do it like that. So there's our first modified seine knot, and then you can just take, and I always keep an extra needle here handy for doing this because I find it easier to do it without the cord attached to it. But we just push our knot back down inside the fabric, and then we put our needle up into the next hole, pull that out. This one we pull it all the way through, and I like to keep, some people when they put the holes in the fabric, they'll actually use a soldering iron and they'll make a nice hole, but it gets a little big. And there's nothing really wrong with that because you're going to cover it up with a piece of tape anyway. But when you have really big holes, your stitches don't run really straight. It takes a lot of fooling around to make them straight. So what I do is I kind of work with kind of the smallest size hole that I can get away with. That's why I kind of like the flat cord as opposed to the round cord, because you can work a smaller hole with it. But once you've done your stitch, you can kind of look at it, and if it's a little bit crooked, you can actually carefully give it a little bit of a tug and actually straighten it a little bit. So, because it really doesn't make any difference to the airworthiness of it, but it makes a difference to the look of it, and everybody wants to do nice looking work and make it look like it just rolled out of the factory in Santa Monica, right? So you want to do nice, neat work. As a pilot, when you see a repair done to an airplane, and it's a nice, neat job, all the rivets are nice and straight and everything and stuff, it gives you a lot of confidence in the work. And it's the same thing with, you know, your tapes. When you put your tapes on, I drew these out with a pencil line, so that when I put the tape on, you run the tape right down one of the lines, so when you sight up the tape afterwards, it's nice and straight. If it was a little bit crooked, if it had a couple of wows in it, it wouldn't make any difference at all to the airworthiness of it, but it makes a much nicer looking job when everything is nice and straight that way. So, how's your battery?